Okay, hi, and welcome to the Girl Meets Goal podcast, where we are talking with women who have reached their goals above and beyond. And today we have a special guest, Dominique Kennedy. She just went out for a second. Okay, there she's back.
Hi.
She's back. Again, we have a special guest, Dominique Kennedy. And real quick, before she starts spitting all of her expert advice in her related field, I'm going to drop her bio real quick so you can see how awesome she is. Okay. So, Dominique Kennedy is a communication expert, speech therapist, speaker, and trainer. Her mission is to empower professionals and leaders through expert programs, valuable resources, and a thriving community centered around effective communication. Dominique is the author of 5 books centered on communication, and her experience expands across diverse settings that include schools, hospitals, rehabilitation centers, and early intervention agencies. Through her private practice, she serves children, teens, and adults. Dominique holds a bachelor's degree and master's degree in communication sciences and disorders with an emphasis in speech language pathology. She is a member of the American Speech Language Hearing Association, Fayette Chamber of Commerce, and Board of Directors for Science, Engineering, Mathematics Link, Inc. Dominique lives in the Atlanta metro area of Georgia with her husband and their 2 daughters. She enjoys fine arts, music, and culture. Beautiful. Wow. I always love reading the bio because it's like, wow, you see how many goals just in that bio you have already reached and obtained. So, without further ado, again, Dominique Kennedy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, Morgan. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this conversation today.
Oh, no problem. And we've had, if listeners out there have seen my page, they know we've done a lot of talks in the past. We've collaborated on a lot of different things on Instagram and Facebook. But today I wanted to dive in and just really, express and talk about, all the things that you've done and really deep dive into your background, your history, and again, all the goals that you've accomplished, because there's women out there who are working toward goals and maybe going slow, and they're looking for how do women like you who are so empowered, who've accomplished so many things, how did they go from A to B? Because sometimes we just see the B, right? All the accolades we see, once you get like you have your master's, we see the end goal, but sometimes we don't see all the little bit in between. So in this podcast, in this interview today, we're going to talk and try to fill in the gaps so you can see how Dominique got from A to B. So first, let's get started. Again, you have so many titles. So let's start with your titles. So can you explain some of your titles? I know sometimes, in these sciences, professions, some people are like, wait, what does that mean, right? So again, speech language pathology, and also you hold a bachelor's degree and master's degree in communication sciences and disorders with the emphasis in speech language pathology. So can you explain a little bit of your title?
Absolutely. So I went to school to study communication sciences and disorders, as you described. The emphasis is speech language pathology. It's essentially the study of communication, the study and science behind um, the features, the different ways in which we express ourselves as communicators. So essentially, that's an easier way to think about it. So some people say speech therapy. Other people say speech language pathology. There's a number of different ways to describe it, but it's essentially centered around how we communicate, how we listen. It's in the hearing and speech science arena.
Okay, wow, wow, wow. And where did you go to college?
I attended Florida State University, both for my graduate and undergraduate degrees.
Wow, wow, amazing. So I want to dive in deeper into your profession. So what exactly, for people out there who may not know, what is a communication disorder?
So a communication disorder can encompass a number of different areas. Typically, when people hear communication disorder or communication science or even speech therapy, oftentimes people think about children who may have a difficult time producing certain sounds, or individuals that might have a difficult time communicating their thoughts and ideas as easily. Some people may think about a family member that has had some kind of traumatic brain injury or stroke. And there are individuals in the profession that I serve in that help to remediate or support, offer strategies and different supports for those who have had that particular type of experience. Now, we have it's a pretty long list as to all the different ways in which we help and serve people through communication science. There's stuttering that may be addressed. There are voice disorders that may be addressed. Again, the speech sounds, traumatic brain injury. We also cover areas such as swallowing and feeding disorders. So there's a number of different things that encompass or cover what we do as speech language pathologists. I happen to have decided to use my speech science background to produce different courses and produce a number of different books and speak on the topics that are most pertinent to how we communicate as parents, how we communicate as professionals, and how our personal communication impacts us in every particular area of our lives.
Wow. Okay. Because I know a lot of people, it's funny because I had a friend who was a speech language pathologist major, and I didn't even know what she was doing. She would tell me, and I'm like, okay, yeah. I didn't know what that led to as far as, I don't even know why I never asked her, but I didn't know what that led to after college. I didn't know,
Right.
That's why I'm like, let me dive in and see, because a lot of people probably heard of that major and expertise before, but probably didn't know, and also, like you said before, you may think about kids, a lot of times, they may have difficulties. And so those kids who are growing up in the school system and they may have trouble maybe reading, they would go see you, or how does that work?
Well, it depends. So we have to perform a level of assessment. There's different clinical interviews and assessment that is completed in order to determine if what is presenting is truly a disorder. Is it just a difference via dialect or due to dialect? Is it a difference just based on experience and exposure? So we definitely have to make sure we use the right tools and the right resources to determine what is the core feature and why did this person come to the office or the clinic or whatever setting you're working in, and just make a decision as to what would be the best support, whether they would actually need therapy to help support the area of concern or address the area of concern, or if it's something that they can be provided with different resources or be referred out to a different professional arena. So it really kind of depends as to what a person may come to the office for and how they would be best served. There's a definite process to how that would work out for different individuals. And some speech therapists choose to specialize in an area. So you may specialize in voice, or you may specialize in stuttering or fluency or different areas. So it really kind of can be a broad range as to how we would address different areas of challenge and how we would choose to move forward in that. I've worked in a number of different settings and arenas, so I've had an opportunity to work with a broad range of individuals and different cultural backgrounds, different types of concerns that may arise, and how to address those things. I've, again, chosen to use those tools and use the interventions that I've been able to provide families with or individuals with, and put that into the books and put that into the different resources that I've made available, as you can see later when we talk about things available on my website. But
yes, we will. We definitely gonna dive in, as everybody out there, they will know where to find you, because this is something I'm gonna dive into in a second. This is something we may not know we may need. I know you not just only deal with children, but you also deal with adults as well. And even adults that may not have, and of course you'll dive into this later, even, adults may not have something profound maybe, but still need to work on their communication on some levels, right? So now I want to start getting into your goals. So you got your master's, you went all the way so far, into the schooling. Now, how did you get into that major? Was it a childhood goal of yours? When did that, okay, this is what I want to be, this is what I want to pursue? When did that come alive for you?
Great question. I tend to answer this question in pieces. There are a number of different layers to the specific question. the probably most concise way to answer is that I went into college with the intention of pursuing journalism and public relations. Well, I happened to meet an individual on campus one day while at the bus stop on campus. And that individual was already a part of the communication sciences and disorders department. And so in speaking with him and learning more about what he does, learning more about his experiences, I was intrigued, I was fascinated. And the more we talked, the more I listened, the more I became curious about what this particular area entailed. So I decided to take that information, go straight to the clinic that was on campus and speak with the professionals there, get kind of immersed in the community. And from there, I pretty much decided this is exactly what I want to do. This connects all the dots and makes sense for all the different pieces and all the different experiences that led up to having had that one discussion at a bus stop and then the conversations that follow. So that's the short version of how I became a speech language pathologist.
Wow, that's so amazing. That something universe. When you before that happened, were you feeling like, was public relations? Were you feeling like, okay, this is not me all the way because sometimes that happens, you start giving the vibration off, you start maybe asking yourself questions like, is this the way I want to go? I'm still not all the way sure. Were those questions going, were you 100% locked in, or were you?
Good question, Morgan.
Yeah.
I was interested in public relations. I was interested in journalism. I was most interested in communication fields.
Okay.
I was most interested in a helping profession. And the reason that I chose journalism and public relations initially, or had the thought to pursue that, happened to be related to my interest in writing. So writing was always my first love, my first interest. I had a poem published when I was 12 in an anthology. So that was my first experience kind of getting myself acclimated with the literary world outside of just being an avid reader. Mm-hmm. So that led me into thinking, okay, maybe journalism, maybe public relations. I didn't actually know about communication sciences in that particular field until having that conversation at the bus stop. So wow. That made everything else click. It made everything else come together. And it just made sense for the experiences I've had before and the experiences as far as what I thought I wanted to pursue and how I would choose to do that.
Wow, and that's so interesting. Once you had that conversation, you were like, all right, you went right to that and started your journey. Wow, and then you ended up, wow, so high prestige with master's degree. Were there any hiccups along the way? Sometimes we have a plan in our head, like, okay, it'll go like this, and I'll just get my master's, and it'll be. But then sometimes, what again, people don't see is the different trials. There's ups and there's also downs that happen on your road to accomplishing your goal of obtaining your master's degree in that area. Were there any hiccups along the way that you overcame?
I would definitely say the program is very rigorous. It's very competitive, especially. It's typically a small department. So the fact that I was able to be accepted into the program, there was a place for me there, and I was able to just kind of matriculate through the program. It was very intense. It's often encouraged if you can solely focus on your studies during that time and not have to do other things. I know some people work through school, and I initially tried to do that, but it became rather intense to do that. So I decided to more formally focus solely on the graduate program. So the rigor of the program, realizing that everyone in the program was there to also achieve their intended goals, and being able to just really dive in deeply to making sure not only did I understand the ideology, the methodology, the focus, all the textbook knowledge that you get, but being able to make certain that when I actually encountered people, because that is something that we did at the graduate level, you actually work with clients and you work in a clinic and you interact with individuals that are actively working to grow in different communication areas. So making certain that I gained all the skills and learned everything I needed to know, was able to navigate each session properly. it was something that you definitely kind of, either you have it or you definitely have to dig deep to get it. And I believe I had it very early on, but there's still just so many different things as it relates to just learning people and the psychology of people and the science of communication. Just adding all those pieces together was definitely something that I had to be focused in on. So then after leaving college and deciding what direction I wanted to go, whether education, and then later going to healthcare, the healthcare aspect of speech, and just knowing how to navigate being a for real adult. 'Cause I felt like I was an adult in college, but once you kind of graduate from college and actually are getting into the workforce of more officially, learning how to do that, and then getting married right out of college and learning how to navigate being a wife, and then later having children and learning how to navigate that and still be a professional. So just learning how to show up in a way that was most authentic to me, but also most representative of how I would like to serve as a communication specialist. So I would say being able to do that at every level, being able to do that in different settings, being able to do that as I also wear a wife hat, also wear professional hat, also wear, the different things that we do. I would say that was definitely teachers along the way, definitely lots of milestones, which really kind of leads me to in communication and how I've chosen to approach it, making sure that I have resources and courses for parents and how they would choose to communicate with their children, their teenagers, having resources for professionals and how to navigate the workforce and how to have communication experiences when you experience maybe conflicts or challenging things that come up at work. And then also, just personal life. We have a number of different relationships we experience personally, how to transition from being under your parents' care into another stage of life, or how to have difficult conversations with family members and friends. So all of those different experiences along the way help me to be able to best support those that I do through the things that I'm able to offer.
Okay, so let's piggyback off that. As far as I want to dive into the communication aspect as you brought up. So why is communication important? And also the second part to that, can you give the listeners, the viewers, some communication tips that they actually can maybe even use once they finish watching here, that they can, once they get into different situations, they can be like, oh, okay. Because I don't think we know how important communication is. That's literally what we do. We wake up and we communicate, right? So can you talk about how important communication is? And I know you have 3 phases. I know for parents, relationships, and also on the workforce. So can you explain a little bit about why it's so important?
Absolutely. As you mentioned, Morgan, we definitely have all different aspects as it relates to communication. I've chosen to focus in on the 3 I would feel most key features, being our personal relationships, our professional relationships, and our relationships as parents. So I believe those are important because they are what we encounter most often. The individuals that we interact with most often typically fall in those different categories. The people that we experience on a regular basis typically happen and occur in those specific areas, and how we're able to effectively do that creates opportunities for us to continue to not only build and establish relationships, but effectively maintain relationships, because who doesn't want to have a healthy and happy relationship with their friends and family? Who doesn't want to experience healthy and happy relationships with their professional group and in their community? So being able to do that effectively is really at the core of how we live, how we thrive, being able to just actively pursue those different areas in a healthy way.
Now, what would you say to someone who maybe is trying to communicate with somebody, but they're not displaying maybe the same thing back as adults in maybe relationships, or maybe, as women, friendships with some of our friends, and, it becomes frustrating when maybe you're trying to communicate differently and they're not on the same page? What would you say to kind of mend that situation, or maybe a tip to, make the situation better?
Absolutely. So being that I'm in the communication field of an industry, one thing that I tend to lean into is not only the speaking aspect of what we do, but the listening aspect. So being able to make certain that when we are having a conversation, asking ourselves, am I actively listening to what is being shared? And sometimes we bypass that piece and think, okay, sure, I heard you, I heard you. That may not always be the case, especially if we're hearing with, through ears that we've had this conversation over and over, and we're revisiting again, and we found ourselves in this place again, or we're looking through a lens of, we've been here before, here we go again. So being able to listen and show up in a conversation with fresh ears, with renewed lens as far as how you would choose to approach that conversation is so important. So active listening, making sure you hear not only the message that's being communicated, but also hearing the intention behind what is being communicated. So you're actually, as a communicator, you're entering the conversation with clear intentions. When I come into this conversation, I want to be able to achieve this, this, and this. This is my intended outcome. This is my preferred outcome. Well, you can want something and have a goal of something, but how are you actually getting to that goal, and what does it look like? Sometimes we have this idea about what we think should happen, what we think someone should have heard, but being able to effectively map out, like, how do we get to that place? And what does that actually look like when we get there? How do I know that we've arrived at this place of understanding in this conversation? So how do I know will be answered by, did I walk in with an intention? Did I walk in with an objective? And was that met? Well, how do I know? What does that look like? You have to have a picture in your head as to what particular outcomes best fit or best suit that conversation. And then how we arrive there, or is there an opportunity where it could be shaped a little bit differently? Because we can go into a conversation and think, okay, this is what I want to happen. And that's still fine. But if it doesn't happen in the way you pictured, or if the person didn't say it in the way you would have wanted them to say it, am I still able to get to my intended end? Can we still get to some level of understanding? Do I need to offer more clarification? There's something more that I need to know as a communicator. So I would really challenge people in their conversations to enter with clear intentions, have at least a image, a glimmer of an image as to what that should look like. And then also be open to the possibilities that there are generally a number of ways to get to an intended end. So 2 + 2 = 4, 3 + 1 = 4. It doesn't have to always work in the way you mapped it out in your head, but is it still something that can effectively work for both parties involved in the conversation? So having studied communication science, and typically that looks a certain way in a clinical setting, but taking that background, taking that expertise, taking that knowledge and things that I've built up, and being able to apply that to other relationships or other relation types is something that I think we can all benefit from.
Yeah, and as you're talking, I'm just realizing, like, communication is the basis of the whole society, as far as your relationships with people.
Right.
I mean, also, they always say, they ask people who've been married a long time, what's the key to staying together? And everybody always says communication, right?
Right.
And that, but I feel like people don't really know what that means. They just say, like, or when couples say that, the listener doesn't always know. They're always like, okay, communication, I think I know what that means. And then also, if you're a parent and you want the best communication with your kid, especially as they're growing up, you want them to be able to talk to you. You want them to be able to come to you on different things. So I know laying the groundwork for good communication with your
Right.
kids is also key as well. And I know those are top things for women, where mothers also, even no matter what stage, we're in the dating stage, we're just getting married stage, or we've been married, communication is still something that always, I'm sure, is continuously, being worked on. It's like after that honeymoon phase, everything's great that first couple months. And then, once you start living together, once things start getting serious, it's like, oh, like, we got to learn how to communicate,
Right.
because you're going to bump two people are going to bump heads, especially maybe one is from California, the other one is from New York City. We're from opposite sides, of the country, and we come together. There's going to be a communication barrier, I feel like, at some point. Just because you grew up differently, I grew up differently. My culture here in California is differently, your culture, are
Yeah.
those something, I know those are top things, as women we go through. Are those, I know you mentioned you have a course, are those some things that you touch in the course? I'm sure people really need to hear effective strategies.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you mentioned those different experiences and scenarios, Morgan. You're right, coming together. And you mentioned the culture. Culture plays a lot into our communication style. And yes, that's actually something I do put into my courses: effective communication, how to increase your impact through effective communication, how to communicate confidently. And I'll be having another course roll out on cultural considerations, or the diversity, equity, inclusion version of communication. So that'll be coming out next month. So, and available to those through a course. But when you think about culture, sometimes we only think about culture as in nationality, ethnic group, that kind of background. But culture is, I grew up in this region of the world, you grew up in that region of the world. I grew up in this particular state, you grew up in this other state, or we grew up and our family practices look like this. Your family practices look like that. So culture is not just skin tone, ethnicity, nationality, and the things that we typically think about. It's values, it's beliefs, it's behaviors, and bringing those things together, whether it be in a marriage relationship, or blending a family together, or even just having a conversation. There's so much that can happen in the dynamics of a conversation just because there are cultural differences that can either serve to help you learn more about yourself or the other person, or it can serve as a communication barrier. So my goal as a communication expert is to help people overcome those communication barriers, help people to get to a place where we feel like we can navigate those conversations differently, overcome those challenging areas, and really get to a place where we can meet and convene and fellowship and be able to just meet our goals, get our intended outcomes, have those particular progressive things occur in our lives.
Wow. And communication is so, that's why I'm so glad I have you on as a guest, because communication is so important. And you have a course. Now, you also, when we first met, I bought your book, which was so enlightening. I mean, so enlightening. So can you talk a little bit about your book? Do people, would they start with your book and then maybe get your course, or they can get it all together? Do you have like a way, is there, you start here, finish here, or, how can people enjoy some of the resources that you have out?
Absolutely. So I would say one of the best things to do would be to visit my website, dominiquekennedy.com, just to see all the resources, whether you need something related to consult, whether you need actual speech therapy sessions and services. The books are available, the courses are available. So all of these things are accessible to individuals. I have some free resources. I have some things that can be accessed through different subscription opportunities. So there's a number of different resources available. I would say really being able to determine what is going to be the thing that you need most. I do have a course that is specific to individuals who stutter, but I also have courses that are specific to individuals who want to increase their impact through effective communication. And you can address those particular areas both personally in your professional field and as a parent. So it's available to you in a package in that way, so you can have everything you need, and all the most important areas of your life can be addressed in that particular course. So that's one opportunity. And then the books are great complements to the courses. So my most recent book, which is one of them that you have, is the word equity model. So I created this framework around communication, this framework that helps us to think about how to be more intentional in our communication. And it speaks about the essence of adding value to individuals through your communication. So that is one opportunity. Another book that's available that's a good complement to one of the courses, is also reconciliation through conversation. This particular book is great because, we don't always know what questions to ask. We don't always know how to initiate a conversation. We think we do until we run into challenges, and then we're like, wait, how do we get here? So this particular resource is something that is available to any individual that feels like they want to better navigate or want to better approach a conversation about cultural differences, or maybe you want a conversation about how to even talk about screen time with your kids, or how to just navigate any kind of challenging conversation and have the tools available to you as to how to approach it. And the thing I love about this particular book is that it gives you like a self-reflection opportunity, as well as ways to also approach the person that you're talking with. So that's another available opportunity. And then because I heavily focus my attention with the community of people who stutter, there's a book called Stuttering is What You Think. That particular book also features a little more about my speech story, which lends itself to different stories of other individuals who stutter, or individuals who stutter. It also speaks about, it gives resources and tools on how to connect with the different community opportunities there. So every book that is available connects directly to a course that's available. So I would definitely say pair them because you get both what is being shared, the video and audio, and all kinds of downloads, all kinds of resources that way. But then you also have something that you can, actively work through. Each is self-paced. The books are self-paced. Obviously, the courses are self-paced, and you can just pair each of those and have pretty much everything you need right there.
Now that's awesome. And do you have a private yeah, I need speech. Do you have a private practice in your, where you are in Atlanta, that people can, if they want one-on-one services as well?
Absolutely. So I offer different services to my private practice. I serve children, I serve teens, I serve adults. That can also be accessed. The easiest way to get to that is through the main website, which is dominiquekennedy.com. Just kind of look at the menu bar. You'll see where to get therapy services, and we can get you set up depending on what your particular need is, and get your family started on some interventions and supports.
Wow, this is so needed. I hope everybody picks up a copy of the book, because again, I've read the book. I keep it close by. It was eye-opening for me as well. Again, I didn't know communication went like that. I just did my thing as far as talking, and I didn't know, like, oh wow, you can effectively communicate to have better outcomes, to have positive outcomes as well. So I think what you do is so needed. So everybody should pick up a copy of your book, again, along with your courses. And it's amazing. I'm so glad that you became a business owner, because you could have, we're able to all enjoy the expertise that you have. You have a private practice, but you become an entrepreneur, a business owner, and actually extend, your resources to the world. So now we all can, get a taste, even if we're not in your area, we can all get a taste of how to effectively communicate. So I think that is awesome. So as we wrap up, I want to pivot back to some goals. And if you can give us, you again accomplished so many things, many books and the courses, becoming an entrepreneur, your practice alone. What is a gold tip that you have for people out there who are maybe entering into a field such as yours, or just, trying to get things moving with a book, with maybe open their own practice as well in their field? What's the gold tip that you can share with us?
Absolutely. I would say the first thing, and something that we may not think about as often, you and I have had conversations about this more, because you have such a amazing series of resources available to individuals just on self-talk, and you have your Diamond Club, which I would strongly encourage individuals to connect with, to just really elevate how you approach life. But also, I would say one of the things that I would encourage people to do is to assess their self-talk first, So when you have a goal, it's important to not only speak about that goal, but believe it yourself. So how you are thinking about that goal, how you are speaking about that goal, the things that you're thinking about as you even consider or ponder the idea of actually going after that goal. That is a place to start, because everything, in my opinion, starts in our thinking, and basically it shows up in our communication. So being able to assess how you're thinking about that goal, how you're talking to yourself about the steps needed to accomplish that goal is so critical. So that would be a step I would say start at. And then connect to community. I feel like being able to be a part of a community professionally, having my family, as a community of people that help to support me. And then as a parent, I still need to connect to community, because that's how I feel like I help my children thrive in different social areas, or I feel, poured into from community in that particular arena. So the second part would be to connect to community, whether it be someone in your community that has pursued that particular goal or has gone into that industry that you're interested in. Being able to connect with a mentor or some kind of a mastermind group to really think about getting tooled up with what you think you would need to help you be successful and be effective, and not only how you communicate your vision for that goal, but also how you accomplish that particular mission through your business or professional endeavor. So your self-talk, connecting to community, and then actively checking in with yourself. I have lots of resources available through the courses and through the community that's rolling out, which is like a communication check, and being able to check in with yourself on a regular basis to know not only where you are in different areas and what's showing up in your communication, and what that looks like. Because when you think about being a business professional and you're connecting with people, perhaps you think that they have latched onto the vision, or maybe you think they've connected with why you're doing it and what things you're trying to do, but being able to communicate that effectively helps to not only have your business thrive, but helps you level up, so to speak, as a professional. So those few things, again, your self-talk, connecting to community, and really doing a communication check-in is so key and critical to making sure you actually achieve those goals.
Yes. Now I'm sure everybody can see why you've accomplished, and I'm sure this is just the beginning for you. Again, check out her many books. Check out, we'll also be linking everything, to the video. Check out the courses. And what I love talking with you about is the positive self-talk. That's all we're about. Growth goal, affirmations and all the stuff. I know you talk about power statements that you have throughout some of your resources. But I love that tip about positive, because that's where it starts. And our theme for the Diamond Club this year is, our one word is believe.
Yes.
Very simple. I never like to make things complicated, but that is our word for the Diamond Club group that I have, is just simply believe. Because if you don't believe, then none of these things can unfold. Just by a simple belief in yourself that you can actually accomplish those things that you want to, even when you can't really see how it may unfold. Sometimes we have a plan in our head. I'm sure maybe throughout your, entrepreneurship quests and graduating and, things like that, we think it's just a straight line, right, to those things. And like you mentioned before, which I know maybe a lot of people listening, when you're in college, sometimes, I've heard some people have to do 2 or 3 jobs, just to get through college, because, everybody doesn't have the same help as everybody else. So some people, again, 2 or 3 jobs to get through, but they're pushing through. And then hopefully, they can drop some of those jobs to really be able to focus. But everybody's path is so different, right, to get to that end goal. So it's so important to have positive self-talk. So again, thank you so much for coming, for showering us with communication strategies. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Your books and your courses dive so much deeper. I know you shared some tips already today, but your courses and everything, I'm sure, dive so much deeper into this. So I encourage everybody to pick up some of those resources. And also for last, again, if you want to drop some of those, again, we'll link it, but again, can you drop some of the ways people can find you and purchase some of those items?
Absolutely. So the best way to connect with me is simple, dominiquekennedy.com. You'll access the books on the website, you'll access the courses, all the social media opportunities, and connecting on that way is available as well. So I would love to stay connected with you. I would love to continue to support the different areas that you're seeking. So definitely feel free to reach out.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Dominique, for coming by. We'll keep you in our in our lineup, okay? Because communication is so important. Even though we've talked so many times, I'm like, wow, I keep coming back to communication. I need to pull my book out actually again after this and go through it, okay? And I love, again, also it's a quick, easy read. But I may need to pull my book out every now and again and refresh my tips, right, on communication. So again, thanks for being here, and all the followers out there. You can always check girlmeetsgold.store for any affirmation needs, any other resources, as well as checking out Dominique's stuff. So again, thank you, and we look forward to having you back again.
Sounds great. Thank you, Morgan. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.